Greetings, this is Charles Darwin. Actually, it's a whole infinite regress of Charles Darwin's, because you're seeing this from between two mirrors on the bathroom door. Okay, well, I'm here to talk to you about a very important topic, a book that I never wrote, but it's time for me to finally speak out about it, and that is The Origin of Feces. Now you might say, why does that have to be explained? Feces is the food that you eat and that you cannot digest and that must be gotten rid of. That's what feces is, and there's no way to avoid it. Now, actually, that's not entirely true, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. I first got this idea by reading a novel by the French novelist René Barjavel. It was called Le Voyageur Imprudent, The Careless Traveler, and it's about a time traveler who went into the future 100,000 years. And what he found is that humans had evolved considerably during that time. Women had evolved to become huge as a pyramid, and have thousands of breasts. And what did they feed? Well, they fed the little tiny males. Little tiny males, each one of which, instead of having a regular mouth, had just a hole into which the female's breast could fit, and that the entire food of the male was the milk produced by the female. And what was most interesting in this novel is that the males had no opening for their intestinals. Okay, so I'm not going to use the word for that on this video, but anyway, there was no opening. In other words, they had the complete assimilation of milk, which was their only food. And that brings up the question, well, it seems ridiculous. Of course, why does feces exist? Well, I'm here to tell you it's an economic reason. Because an animal digests, that is, breaks down, gets all of the nutrients that it can from the food up to a certain point. Okay. And that point is where it is no longer worth the cost of further digestive metabolism, production of the enzymes, etc., in order to digest the food the rest of the way. Theoretically, you could have total assimilation of all food so long as it is organically based. Now, how does the carbon get back out if you take it in? Well, actually, it's because your mitochondria break down the carbon-containing molecules and you breathe out the carbon. So really, you do not need to have any feces at all so long as you breathe out carbon dioxide. And at some point, however, your digestive system would have to be so big, so complicated, and have so many enzymes involved in order to completely assimilate all the food that it just wouldn't be worth it. You'd be dragging your gut around if that was the case, and that would make it hard to run away from predators, etc., etc. You see, we do not digest the food all the way. We only digest it to the point where it's economically valuable. There is still food value left in the feces. Ask your local scarab beetle, ask your local bacterium, and you will find that there is in fact plenty of food value left in the feces. So it's an economic answer. Your body digests food all the way that it can until the point when it is no longer economically useful to digest the food, and that becomes feces. Now, this is also everything else that your body does. There's an economic cost for it. You breathe in air with about 21% carbon dioxide, sorry, that's 20% oxygen, and you breathe it out with 15% oxygen. Now, why is there any oxygen left in the air that you breathe out? Well, in whales, when they dive deep down for a half an hour, they are able to extract most of the oxygen from what they breathe in. Why don't we do that? Well, it's not worth it to do that, because it's a law of diminishing returns. And so, when you think about it, all of nature is an economic balance. After all, think about it. Another reason why feces exists is because it's useful for other purposes. For instance, especially if you're a monkey, you can fling it at your enemies or your competitors, and that is literally the case in monkeys. That's figuratively the case for politicians. Well, you see, all of nature is an economic balance, so it's favored by natural selection. No wonder that it was an economist, Malthus, who first thought of something similar to natural selection. This is Charles Darwin. Tally ho, and amen.